The Associated Press has a chilling report out on the state of our immigration system at the moment. Take a look. Nearly 2,000 children have been separated from their families at the U.S. border over a 6-week period during a crackdown on illegal entries, according to Department of Homeland Security figures obtained Friday by the Associated Press. The figures show that 1,995 minors were separated from 1,940 adults from April 19th through May 31st. The separations were not broken down by age and included separations for illegal entry, immigration violations, or possible criminal conduct by the adult. Under a zero-tolerance policy announced by Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Department of Homeland Security officials are now referring all cases of illegal entry for criminal prosecution. U.S. protocol prohibits detaining children with their parents because the children are not charged with a crime and the parents are. Sessions announced the effort April 6, and Homeland Security began stepping up referrals in early May, effectively putting the policy into action. Okay, so I have a lot to say about this. Let's put aside for a second, which we shouldn't do, but we're going to do it, the insanely cruel nature of what happened here, because I think all people who are willing to just have a bare minimum amount of basic human decency would look at this and say, there's something wrong with that. That ain't right. That's cruel beyond belief. But put that aside for a second. One of the many things that conservatives say they stand for is, smaller government. And you don't want to spend, you don't want the government to spend that much money. You want it to be trim and slim and as small as possible. Well, if you really believe that, then you know what would actually be a much more humane response to criminally prosecuting everybody who crosses the border, which costs a tremendous amount of money and resources. You know what would be easier? To keep those families together and deport them. Now listen, the thing that the left, by and large, really objects to when it comes to deportations, I haven't heard almost anybody on the left say, oh, if somebody's an actual violent criminal, you can't deport them. Nobody says that. In fact, it's been the policy of many Democratic administrations. Yeah, deport violent criminals. Totally fine with that. It costs a lot of money and you waste a lot of resources to criminally prosecute everybody who crosses the border when you could, and again, this would be consistent with what the right has claimed to believe in for a long time, you could take the less cruel approach of keeping the families together and deporting them. When somebody initially crosses the border, again, I don't think there's as much of an outcry if you deport them right when they cross the border, but keep the family together. The real outrage is when a family's been here for 5 years, 10 years, and they've set up a life here, and they're law-abiding citizens. And then you want to deport those people who, at this point, don't know the other country that they left, who are very solidly American, who are following the laws and being productive members of society. So that's where I think you get the Democratic outrage, is when they deport people who are not criminals and who've been here for a while. If somebody crosses the border and they just cross the border and, you keep the family together, but you, in a humane way, deport them back to where they came from, I don't think that would be that much of an outcry. But what is leading to an outcry, and what's justified as an outcry, by the way, is when you criminally prosecute everybody who crosses the border and you separate families. Because then what happens? What happens? Do we know if these people are going to get back with their parents at some point in the future? Do we know? Or are you going to lock up the parents for crossing the border and then screw over the kids' lives and send them to be with fucking strangers, and who knows who's, eventually getting these children? Do we know? I mean, there could be fucking child trafficking happening as a result of this. There could be abuse happening as a result of this in foster care. There could be all these different problems that happen. And again, this is all to be on another level of cruelty while also snubbing what they say are conservative principles, because this is very, very expensive. And again, I know the basic human decency argument doesn't seem to pierce through to people on the far right. That's why I'm making the point of, if you're a conservative and you care about the dollars and cents of it, this is a very expensive thing to do. And they're not even, like, of the people coming into the country. Like, what do you think? Like, all of them are MS-13 or something like that? No. People who cross the border or come into this country, agree or disagree with them, and, condemn them or not for what they're doing, the overwhelming majority of them are really just trying to make a better life for themselves and their kids. And in many instances, the drug war policies that we've, pursued for decades are leading to the destruction of their home countries, and then they leave those countries to escape gang violence and crime, and then as they come into this country, they're immediately accused of being the gang members and the criminals that they're escaping. So it's as bad as it gets in terms of a deeply inhumane policy, an expensive policy, and I think the outrage is deserved. And the thing that's been really frustrating about this is Donald Trump, he's been basically deflecting and blaming the Democrats. Now, don't get me wrong. Obama had many horrendous immigration policies, and he deserves criticism for being the deporter-in-chief, as they called him, for sure. But what Trump is doing there is a dodge. It's obfuscating. Because if he wanted to, he could end this right now. He could stop it right now. Right now. But he's not. He's keeping it in place as he pretends to be against it, and he blames the Democrats for it. The fuck is that? That's nothing but playing politics. Because he wants to hold these kids literally hostage to get the border wall, among other things. So he's lying to the public and acting like, oh, the Democrats implemented it. Oh, I'm not really for it. Well, you could end it right now, but you're not. You're choosing not to end it right now. So it's really disgusting to see what's unfolding here. There's been horrendous immigration practices in the U.S. for a really long time. We're hitting a peak with this stuff, though. And then, like we discussed before, Jeff Sessions citing Bible verses to back up the idea that we should separate parents from their kids. Right, like Mr. I Love Jesus is acting like Jesus Christ, if he was around today, would be like, forget the universal healthcare thing. I'm not for that. Forget the ending war thing. I'm not for that. What I'm really in favor of is separating kids from their parents. So they're just draconian and they're primitive and they're using an extremist philosophy, and it should be called out at every turn.